everyone, Lou here. One thing a lot of people request from me, if you're new here, is to talk about shows from the United States. And well, thanks to the wonderful world of YouTube tomfoolery, I really can't do that unless I want to get marked for kids for some fucking reason, or more copyright bullshit dodging. However, to find a middle ground, let's talk about some American shows and movies that got anime. For clarity's sake, by the way, I mean shows that were made in America and then had a Japanese studio, for whatever reason, decide to make an anime. Not an American studio making an anime-inspired spin-off, because that doesn't really count to me. Also, I want this to be actual shows here, so as cool as the Animatrix is and does a better job at explaining that mindfuck of a film series, each OVA is 10 minutes long, so I think they're shorts rather than an actual series. Now with that out of the way, let's start. Powerpuff Girls Z. Powerpuff Girls, one of my favorite shows on Cartoon Network as a kid. Oh, as painful as this is for me to say, I'm gonna have to explain what the Powerpuff Girls is because there's now a whole last generation of young adults who don't know what that is, so Powerpuff Girls was a show on Cartoon Network that released on November 18th, 1998 to massive success, and part of the major boom that made Cartoon Network what it is today. It was created by Craig McCracken, who is known for Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Wander Over Yonder, and his wife is the creator of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. You know, the one that was intended for 6-year-olds that attracted 30 to 50-year-old adults? Yes. That one. Now, a year after Powerpuff Girls was cancelled by Cartoon Network in 2005 due to low ratings, for some reason, Toei Animation wanted to make an anime version of the series. Toei Animation is no stranger to adapting children and preteen shows into anime. As I've talked about before, Hannah Montana was going to get an anime by Toei, but why a year after the show ended? Only reason I can think is that maybe Warner Brothers wanted to revitalize the series, and maybe remembering that Kids Warner Brothers was pretty popular back in the day, let Toei make this anime? I mean, I guess that makes sense to me. Anyway, the series was directed by Ishiguro Megumu in what I think is his first directorial position. Prior to that, he was mostly an episode director and key animator for shows like Fist of the North Star and Grave of the Fireflies. Oddly enough, it looks like a lot of small names working on this project. Aside from the producer of Digimon and Ojamajo Daremi, by the way, the anime would release on July 1st, 2006 in Japan, and supposedly never released in the United States, which I find really weird because, like, I could have sworn I saw this on Boomerang as a kid once or twice. Now on to the anime itself. The anime is basically a super anime version of the Powerpuff Girls, except with some minor changes. Instead of Professor Utonium wanting to make a perfect daughter because he's lonely and desperately wants to be a dad, he already is a dad, and instead of Chemical X, it's changed to Ray Z, which his son accidentally blasted particles into the sky that attacked 3 random girls and gave them powers. We have Momoko aka Utsumi, who became Blossom, Miyako Gotokuji, who became Bubbles, and Kaoru Matsubara, who is Buttercup. Ken is Professor Utonium's son now, and instead of the little toy phone the girls were used to alert for trouble, it's now a robot dog that sends out the signal to them because they're all busy and live their own lives. Which is kind of weird, even though they're best friends throughout the series and hang out, it's weird that they're not triplets in this continuity. Surprisingly enough, I think we have all the Powerpuff Girl characters. We have the Mayor, Miss Bellum, Miss Keen, Princess Moorbucks, him, Mojo Jojo, and even the Gangrene Gang. I guess Ace was back from the Gorillas? What I really loved about this anime though was the animation style itself. This is an adorable combination between the original Powerpuff Girls series and cutesy shoujo anime of the early 2000s, like Mermaid Melody. I can't tell you how much I adore the way the eyes look and how the transformation animations weapons perfectly match the girls. Like, my goodness, Bubbles has always been my favorite, but this Bubbles, I think I'm gonna get cavities from the sweetness and how cutesy her transformation is. Though, I guess it makes sense that the Powerpuff Girls would work so well since the series was already heavily inspired by Astro Boy, so it wouldn't be that hard to loop it back around to anime. I mean, this is basically just a girly version of Astro Boy at this point. Overall, if you want a better adaptation of the Powerpuff Girls that isn't that shitty reboot, I highly recommend this one actually. Supernatural, the animation. Now, I've talked about Supernatural before in a separate video, but I'm going to talk about it again. If you want a super in-depth video about this anime though, I highly recommend seeing my review, which will be linked down below in the description. Now, I still don't know why on earth this was made. I'm placing my bets that it was possibly a way for Warner Brothers to find out if Supernatural could possibly work if it was an anime instead in Japan, or something like that. I genuinely don't know. It was directed by Miya Shigeyuki, who mostly did storyboards for anime like High School of the Dead, and Ishizuka Atsuko, who directed anime like No Game No Life, and an episode director for multiple episodes of Nana. Created by Studio Madhouse and released in multiple part Blu-rays on February 23rd, 2011, this anime series would just kinda go down as one of those weird things Supernatural fans know exist, but refuse to talk about for whatever reason. Which is weird, because you could make way too many AMVs with this series, like, I swear. Anyway, the story is exactly the same as the hit CW show, pretty much retelling the first season with some new material here and there that's based off Japanese culture due to cultural change on who is watching it, but it overall didn't go anywhere past like season 1. Thank goodness though, because like I say in the original video, I do not want to live in a world where I would have been subjected to 10 million Super Psycho Love AMVs of Dean Winchester and Castiel. Moreover, people making anime screenshot redraws of the love confession now that they're canon. Holy shit. Which, by the way, if you asked me in like 2012, who was like vaguely into the Super Hulock idea, which of these 3 shows would have a canonical gay pairing, Supernatural was like the last one on that list. The anime was pretty good to me though. Like, I think Supernatural as a story actually works better in an anime format rather than a live action series with bad CGI. And hey, in an anime we're used to stories repeating the same plot over and over again for 20 seasons. Now this does have an English dub, which is strange to me, but whatever, and Jared Padalecki would actually come in to voice Sam. Surprisingly enough, he didn't do that bad of a job. I mean, Sam has the personality of a generic protagonist, so it's not like he had any vocal flexing to do here, but he still did a good job for a guy who's probably never done voice work before this. As for Jensen Ackles, who plays Dean, he was busy with another acting gig at the time the dub lines were being recorded, so he had a voice double come in the form of Andrew Farrar, who I think did a pretty good job emulating the way Jensen Ackles portrays Dean. Although Jensen would come back just to voice him in the final 2 episodes, I guess so they could advertise he was still in it, I guess. Who knows? I also really like the animation style too. It reminded me of a mix between Death Note and those really edgy graphic novels of famous books we all read in like 2005. Considering Supernatural feels like an unending graphic novel, yeah, that actually fits pretty well. Overall, if you want to see why so many 15-year-old girls got their jimmies rustled over a show that was originally made for 50-year-old men who shop Bass Pro Shop, I highly recommend this adaptation of Supernatural. I actually do wish we got a little more, but I think of anime Castiel and just, no thank you. Keep the flames away from me, thanks. Stitch the anime. Oh, this one. How this one makes me salty. Now, Lilo and Stitch was one of my favorite Disney films growing up, I guess because I was a weird fucking kid and Lilo was a weird fucking kid, so hey, relatability, am I right? Now, here's the weird part. I thought for the longest time that this anime was made to coincide with the release of Leroy and Stitch, which was the finale to direct-to-DVD and TV sequels Lilo and Stitch had. But it turns out that this anime was made 2 years after, on October 8th, 2008. Now, I would normally question why this anime was made. However, unlike Powerpuff Girls and Supernatural so far, Stitch is a very popular Disney character in Japan. At least, I'm pretty sure Stitch is popular as a Disney character in Japan if following Japanese Disney merch is anything to go by. This is pretty much just a slice of life styled anime. It's basically just the Lilo and Stitch series on Disney Channel, but with an anime coat of paint, and with a new girl named Yuna Kamihara. And instead of Hawaii, we have Okinawa for some reason. Literally everyone from the original series and movies come back, and I guess follow Stitch to Okinawa? Fucking weird, but okay. Now, you're probably wondering, where the hell is Lilo, right? Well, get your salt ready, because according to this series, Stitch had to leave on an intergalactic mission while Lilo went to college, but she promised to come back in 4 years and meet Stitch on the beach. However, Nani got pregnant by David and went into labor the same day Lilo promised to meet Stitch on the beach. So, instead of going home and checking if Lilo wasn't stuck in traffic or had a delayed flight or literally anything to check where she was, Stitch thought Lilo abandoned him, so he ran away and eventually came to Okinawa because reasons. It's dumb and I hate it. Thanks, Madhouse, for making this series about family. Have Stitch literally abandon his family because logic. The anime was directed by Masami Hata, who's primarily known as a storyboarder for Inuyasha, by the way. I mean, overall, there's really not much to say about this anime. The animation sucks and isn't that great. It shits on the original message of the movies and TV shows, and just overall kind of sucks. I mean, I can only really recommend this anime if you know a really little kid who loves Lilo and Stitch, and maybe they'll just see it just to see Stitch on screen. Other than that, this wasn't good at all. Before I end this video by taking a look at the last entry for this video, let's take a look at some manga adapted from famous TV shows and movies from the West. Star Wars manga. That's right, Star Wars went weeb even before Disney teamed up with Studio Trigger. Now, My Anime List and other manga database sites claim that George Lucas wrote the story for these manga, and I honestly have no idea if that's actually true, but the artwork was done by Tamaki Hisao. Published on July 15th, 1998, likely to coincide with the resurgence of Star Wars in pop culture thanks to The Phantom Menace premiering just 2 months prior, this manga was pretty much forgotten about the second it released. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually read this one. There are no online scans or digital copies of this manga, and from what I've seen, physical copies of each volume go for around $30, which is pretty expensive actually. But from what little I was able to find online, this is actually pretty cool. Picture the story for Star Wars, but told in an 80s shonen format. Come to think of it, considering Star Wars was heavily influenced by Japanese culture in the first place, it's no wonder that the story for Star Wars actually adapts perfectly well to anime. I also really love the art style. Luke looks adorable and Leia looks gorgeous, Han Solo even looks good, and Darth Vader looks awesome. If you happen to find this one at a thrift store somehow, it's pretty good. Sherlock Holmes manga. I've mentioned this one before in another video back when my video quality in general was ass, but there is a manga of BBC's Sherlock Holmes that covers the first 3 episodes with meme-worthy artwork. I mean, it's not terrible. I'm not a huge fan of BBC Sherlock past the first 3-ish episodes anyway, so I can really only recommend it to people who are mentally stuck in 2012 Tumblr where Super Hulock ran rampant and Homestuck was all anybody talked about. Which sounds like hell to me, but hey, you do you, fam. Not a terrible read, but also not that great either. Disney manga. That's right, the capitalistic mouse does it again at nabbing into weeb shit. There's plenty of manga adaptations for classic Disney movies. We have Frozen 2, Tangled, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, and Kilala Princess, which is basically like Sophia the First, but if it was a high school shoujo manga. Does that make sense? Anyway, Disney has a fuck ton of manga. All of these read like classic early 2000s shoujo, and as a lover of early 2000s shoujo, I highly recommend them actually. Just, A lot of these are weirdly difficult to find, but hopefully you can find them someday. Now onto the final entry in this video. Wolverine. Hello, Madhouse. We meet again for more shenanigans afoot, I see. Now, I am not entirely a comic book person here, so I apologize in advance if I get anything wrong about Wolverine. Not saying I don't like comic book characters. I mean, some of my favorites are Batman, Deadpool, Wonder Woman, and Black Panther, but I'm not the type to, like, shit myself when Spider-Man is on screen, you know? Anyway, I would question why this anime was made, but apparently Madhouse is literally a fucking madhouse and just made this shit because they want to. It's so weird to me because I'm so used to other anime adaptations of other properties coinciding with something, like how an anime based off a manga will release after the anniversary of it, or shortly after it ends, you know what I mean? The anime was directed by Hideyoshi Aoyama, whose only real notable work here is doing some storyboarding for Monster and Chobits. Other than that, he's mostly made some meh or critically panned stuff, which is concerning. It would release on January 7th, 2011, where literally not a soul talked about it, and probably financially failed miserably from what I guessed here. Now, the story. See, I don't really follow the X-Men story stuff all too well, so I had to ask a close friend of mine to give me some info about Wolverine. Gonna be honest, this is not an anime friendly to people who know next to nothing about X-Men and Avengers. Like, you're gonna get vague hints, but nothing actually saying anything about Logan's backstory, S.H.I.E.L.D., or the X-Men at all. Hell, you don't even get an explanation for the tension between humans and mutants. The story for this anime is basically that Wolverine has a girlfriend named Mariko, whose father is a Yakuza leader. Her father wants to use her as leverage for deals, so he kidnaps her, and Wolverine decides to go after her. With him is a woman named Yukio, whose parents were killed by Mariko's father, and some cameos from other Marvel works like Cyclops. The series really drags a lot. It honestly feels like it should have been a movie instead, but someone decided to drag the shit out of it just so they could make a 12-episode series out of it instead. Hell, this series doesn't even feel like it's related to Marvel. Just replace Wolverine with some kind of edgy generic protagonist and literally nothing would change. Because that's how little it focuses on our own protagonist. We don't even get a full extent of Mariko and Logan's relationship. All we get is one scene of them on a boat together before she's kidnapped. Like, that's all you got? No extra scenes of them on a date or how they met? The animation is alright. I actually really love the art style for this one. I mean, it's an action madhouse series, so I know the art style is gonna be really sleek and cool. Now, normally, I don't talk about music in an anime, but this one uses the opening for literally every fight scene, and it's really annoying. But it also wasn't bad. Like, I did really like the story, even if it barely had anything to do with Wolverine. If you're a huge Marvel fan and want some fan service Wolverine anime with Yakuza and samurai battles, hey, I honestly recommend this one. Overall, it's weird seeing an anime adaptation of popular American media. Not because of that stupid argument that one needs to stay in their lane or something like that, but it's weird seeing how another culture entirely interprets that media and how they approach it is what makes it weird. I'm curious though, are there any here you prefer over the original series? And if there's any other American media that was turned into an anime or manga, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!